Welcome, everyone. I'm doing all right, all things considered. I don't know if I'm allowed to have copyright music on Substack, and I did it last week. I'm busting the rules again. All right, everybody. Give a couple, just another minute and see, just a little, maybe a few more seconds, and then I'll get going. Anyone like Rage Against the Machine? What's your favorite music for the rebellion? Because you need rebellion music right now, I think. I've got a whole playlist. Got a lot of Rage Against the Machine on it. Okay, I think that's a good 2 minute intro. Hopefully people I should eat my own hair. Who are gonna join, have gotten my notification and are here. Welcome everybody. Uh since I'm in Texas, I'm gonna talk specifically about some Texas crap first and foremost, and maybe primarily, just because I feel like being a Texan of many generations, I have insights that maybe people outside of the state might not have. And something really big came out about Camp Mystic, like literally within the last half hour, which is why I was originally going to go live sooner, but I was a bit later. But none of you knew that because I don't tell anybody where I'm going live, so I can have this flexibility. But I was digesting new information that came out about Camp Mystic via the Washington Post. If anyone's new here or didn't catch it, Camp Mystic is the Christian girls' camp that was flooded. And, unfortunately, many lives were lost in Texas. It was a huge tragedy. But right away, and some people were upset with me that I was asking questions when we were still doing search and rescue efforts. But I thought it was important to bring these questions while people are still focusing on this, because if we wait 90 days, as someone asked me to do out of respect, if we wait 90 days when this loses traction, I feel people won't care as much. Unfortunately, it's really sad. And so I was asking the questions like, there's a duty of care that seemed to have been failed on Camp Mystic, and it seemed to be like my first question was, why were these cabins in an area that is, if you know anything about rivers and Texas, and have just watched Texas rivers rise and fall over even the last 10 years, but even like especially like the last 30 years, almost 40 years, I've been here my whole life. You can look at where these cabins are and go, this is not a place you should probably be building permanent buildings. Like, it's not if, but when these things flood kind of a thing is what I've been saying. And people were like, you can't know that. And there was people that were saying there had another flood in 1987 that should have been like, hey, why did this happen? And so a report came out today from the Washington Post. Well, actually, first, let me get back to what came out before today. So before today, I think it was yesterday or earlier this week, and maybe this weekend, it came out that Camp Mystic had been lobbying to get the area removed from FEMA's like flood listing so that they could expand and build more. And so they actually were successful, I think roughly 10 years ago, in actually getting removed from a flood plan. So Camp Mystic asked and lobbied very hard to be able to be building in a place that FEMA had previously declared dangerous in a 100-year flood plan. And FEMA had granted them that that exemption. Let me see. I've got a note here. So it says federal regulations repeatedly granted appeals to remove Camp Mystic's buildings from their 100-year flood map, losing oversight as the camps operated and expanded in a dangerous flood plan in the years before rushing water swept away children and counselors, a review by the Associated Press found. So that came out. I shared that 2 days ago. And then yesterday, I shared that nearly a decade ago in 2016, Kerr County had considered installing flood warning sirens, but they ultimately didn't pursue them because there was opposition from residents to putting the sirens in. And the news article said that some residents were concerned about the potential for false alarms and sirens going off in the night. And they said it wouldn't be a good thing. So they just didn't do sirens because the community objected to the sirens. That is really negligible. And I've heard different contradicting views of why the community objected to the sirens. But either way, like that is negligence on a state level, negligence on a community level, negligence on a federal level for granting the exemptions that they could build in this 100-year flood plan. But then it gets worse, and of course it gets worse. Oh, and I also reported that they have like this weird no cell phone policy, which goes beyond the no cell phone policy. Like there was a note like that you may get tear-stained letters from your children, and know that this probably happened like weeks ago by the time you get your letter, and so don't worry about it. It's been dealt with. And it's like so, children are like crying and having a hard time, and they won't let them call home even. So it's just like, wow, a lot of just what the heck. The more I read about this camp is just like really disturbing. And then today, the Washington Post put out a news article, and I'm going to read from it since I can't do a screen share here. And it says Camp Mystic's leader got a life-threatening flood alert. They eventually evacuated an hour later. So they waited nearly an hour to take action after the camp leader got that flood alert. And then the byline of that article is much of what made Camp Mystic so special also put it at heightened risk as rivers rose to record flood levels. And you know what? I'm not going to read the whole article, but I did a summary on my Facebook page. So I'm going to read you the summary of that article of what the findings were that came out today, literally like within the last half hour from is when I saw this, and it had like been like 13 minutes ago. So it was like, probably at 9 a.m. or something. So let me read this to you. My summary of what came out today in the Washington Post about Camp Mystic in Texas. Camp Mystic, where tuition is $7,600 for a 4-week summer camp term. So it's really expensive. These are definitely going to be more privileged kids. So $7,600 for summer camp is not something my family could have ever afforded. Just that's really high. And so anyway, the tuition was like really high, expensive. And so their executive director, Richard Dick Eastland, did not begin to evacuate the young campers asleep in cabins near the rapidly rising Guadalupe River for more than an hour after he received a severe flood warning on his phone from the National Weather Service at 1:14 a.m. on July 14th. So if he wouldn't have waited that hour, we could have been having a very, very different conversation today about Camp Mystic. So there's some negligence right there, in addition to many, many different duty of care failures and many different examples of negligence, just like not respecting river beds and flood zones is like the first thing, but there were many things that went downhill after there. So other factors, well, let me just read this. The statements from the family are the first indications that leaders at Camp Mystic, which has spotty cell service and a policy that limits the use of cell phones, received warnings about the flood before it devastated its 725-acre campus, killing 27 counselors and campers. The camp was 6 miles from the nearest town, was relatively isolated. Campers were not allowed to bring cell phones. And so, people pointed out that that's kind of common. Often campers aren't allowed to bring cell phones. However, at this particular camp, counselors also have to keep their phones mostly locked away. So not only were campers not allowed to have cell phones, which is really dangerous considering, like, for example, in Uvalde and different situations where there have been active shooters, kids have used their phones to contact their parents and let them know, hey, I'm hiding under a desk in my school and there's an active shooter. Um, so, yeah, like the campers weren't allowed to have cell phones, but apparently also counselors were not allowed to keep their phones on them either. So that is another potential danger point, right? Someone asked, "Did you tell us who owns Camp Mystic?" I joined a little late. I mentioned Executive Director Richard Dick Eastland, who I do believe has passed because he died um, when he was after he waited an hour to do anything. He died trying to save people. Um, so because I had people in my comments like he should be charged, and I'm like that's gonna be a little hard if he didn't make it. But I do think the organization should be held accountable and not permitted to rebuild after seeing everything that has come to light. So yeah, so the counselors had to keep their phones locked away as well. Also, some of the cabins were less than 500 feet from the river. Uh, and many cabins were built in high risk flood zones as defined by FEMA. But also, the waters reached buildings beyond those boundaries, including the Handy Hut cabin. And another note about that came out today is they said it was almost inevitable that cabins in Camp Mystic would experience massive flooding, three experts said. The Federal Emergency Management Agency in 2013 approved appeals from Camp Mystic to exempt several structures from a flood zone designation, according to federal records. It's just obvious that this is a place that should never have been built upon, said Oliver Wing, the chief scientific officer at Fathom, a water risk intelligence firm. There should not be a single inhabited structure in a floodway. It's unforgivable what's happened here. Uh, which is, finally I'm excited to have scientists and people backing up what I've been saying because I'm nobody of relevance and importance and I don't have any sticking degrees or anything to make, so no one's going to take me seriously. But I'm like, look at this place. It's obvious they shouldn't have been building here. When I say it, it doesn't matter. But when a scientist says it, all of a sudden it has credibility. We really need to not let them rebuild Camp Mystic. And I really do hope they hold the organization accountable. I'm pretty sure they'll probably just file for bankruptcy to get out of accountability. But it's just really, really obvious that there has been gross negligence here, in my opinion. So it's just really, really sad to see. Yeah, it is important to name names in their existence. Always, naming Dick, uh, Richard Dick Eastland, uh, who is no longer with us, doesn't do a lot of good. I don't actually have the names of other people on the board that wasn't listed in the news story. Uh, the more I dig in Camp Mystic, just the worse it gets, honestly. Like, there's a section on their website talking about like what to do if you get tear stained letters from campers, and it is just so sad to read. Like, like their response to that, and um, yeah, it's just horrible. But I can't help but think like what role does religion play in this? Did they like say they need some kind of religious exemption? Who knows? What's gonna come out of this? Like why the exemption was granted because it doesn't really say yet. But we've got just this tragedy here. And I was saying capitalist greed because we are trying to extract money out of riverbeds that we should be respecting and protecting, not extracting. And $7,600 tuition for 4 weeks, times how many girls? That's a lot of money, and to spend almost $8,000 on tuition for sending your kids to summer camp, you would think for that amount of money, they would keep your children safe. Like, where's the duty of care that comes with that tuition? You know, um, it didn't really work well. Let me see what's in the comments. How am I? Yeah, I'm all right. I rock. Literally, because I'm an autistic. Like sometimes I literally rock if I'm thinking. It's like it can be a stim that I do. I rock. I don't even need a rocking chair. I'll rock without one. Yeah. All right. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about that like details have been coming out recently is about Alligator Auschwitz, Alligator Alcatraz, the concentration camp, internment camp that is um, now in the Florida Everglades, which is sacred indigenous territory. I believe it is the, oh my gosh, I had the tribe. Seminole, is it the Seminole in Florida? And I may have said that wrong. So if I've said that wrong, correct me. So it is like sacred lands and delicate ecosystems that need to be left alone, like our riverbeds, leave it alone. And they have put this horrific, just like I don't even want. It's like it's horrific what it is. It's not even a prison. Like they're putting people in cages. So it's like, what do you like? It's a camp. It's a concentration camp, an internment camp. It's a gulag. It's horrible. The conditions coming out of Alligator Alcatraz, Alligator Auschwitz. And so we had lawmakers that were trying to get in to conduct oversight. And that was a struggle getting in, of course, because they weren't going to make that easy. Um, and then on top of that, uh, next we had they finally got in. What they assume, it's a very sanitized, carefully curated tour to make it look better than it really is, church it up. So people, think it's not so bad. They want to hide the worst of the worst. They weren't allowed to take any photos, videos, but people did bring descriptions out of what they saw. And so, lawmakers finally were allowed in to, this very ecologically fragile place where we are literally have hundreds of migrants that are just confined in cages in this basically what's a makeshift tent facility, right? Um, and so they are saying that it is inhumane, which of course it's inhumane. Is anybody surprised? It's inhumane. It's like really hot in there. It's really humid. The climate control is not working. But it gets so much worse than that. And before I get into the conditions, I want to talk about something uh, because Donald Dump has been claiming that it's the worst of the worst, the worst of the worst, only the worst of the worst is going to be sent to these facilities. However, I think it's about like last count was like 700 people that had been sent. Hundreds of these detainees have no criminal records or charges other than maybe being here illegally, which is, I think, a misdemeanor. It's a minor charge. Um, and so on Sunday, a lot of like this is inhumane, and then a lot of these people don't even have criminal records. Essentially, maybe even most of them don't have criminal records. Um, and it was like what happened to violent people and the worst of the worst. Here's the numbers. They said uh, they the Miami Herald obtained and published a list of 700 people held in cages and showed at least 250 of them had committed no offense other than a civil immigration violation. And the authorities are refusing to release a full list of everyone that has been sent there. So the people here might not even be criminals. And to read, and additionally, also, when they're in there, they heard, people screaming, "I'm a U.S. citizen." There are people in there like screaming, "I'm a citizen! I'm a citizen!" And that really wouldn't surprise me because we know he wants to send citizens there. Um, Especially if they won't tell us who all's there and they won't give us a head count, a list of all the names. Like, there probably are U.S. citizens in this alligator gulag, alligator Auschwitz, alligator Alcatraz concentration camp. I'm sure there are probably citizens in there. Why wouldn't there be? This guy's already talked about how he wants to lock up homegrown. Of course, there it wouldn't surprise me if there were citizens in there. Um, so according to The Independent, a Democratic congresswoman has given a scathing review of the Trump administration's so-called alligator Alcatraz in Florida, describing it as an internment camp that needs to be shut the hell down. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who represents Florida's 25th congressional district, said the pictures of the facility don't do it justice, and the detainees were packed into cages. Um, and she said the walkthrough had been sanitized, but conditions nonetheless were appalling. They're essentially packed into cages, wall to wall humans, 32 detainees per cage. The only thing inside those cages are their bunk beds, and there are three tiny toilets for like 32 people. And you know they're not getting cleanup services. The units have sinks attached to the toilet, resulting in detainees having to brush their teeth where they poop. There is minimal privacy for any person inside. An additional description from a different article in The Independent said, this is gross, content warning, this is really graphic, worms in the food, toilets that don't flush, flooding floors with fecal waste, days without a shower or prescription medications, mosquitoes and insects everywhere, lights on all night, air conditions that suddenly shut off in the tropical heat, detainees forced to use recorded phone lines to speak with their lawyers and loved ones, which that's not supposed to be a thing. Yeah. Days after President Trump toured a new immigration detention center in Florida, officials have dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. These are some of the conditions described by those inside. So it's really, really bad. It's really bad. And I think more is going to come out. This is just like what's, come out already. And then also I think like this is what, we're seeing, like what is the stuff they're hiding from us? Because, if that's what we're allowed to see or what they were allowed to see, what they're hiding is going to be so much worse. Just like when I think it was Senator Padilla, but I could have the name wrong, was, wrestled to the ground and taken into custody for asking, questions. He said, like, if this is what you're doing to me, a senator, when people are watching, like, I hate, like what's happening when there's regular people, like, who don't have power or anyone watching. Like, what are they doing when nobody's watching? And it's just like a really scary idea, because you have to know that if what we're seeing is this bad, everything we're not seeing is so much worse, exponentially worse, because the darkest deeds, the most deplorable deeds, are hidden in darkness and hidden and kept out of the light and kept out of sight. Yeah. On a lighter note, this Epstein thing is tearing MAGA apart. And I am so soaking it up like a little sponge. It is about time. I knew eventually, it was not if, but when Elon Muskrat and Trump the dump would have a falling out. Like, they'd have a falling out eventually. They both have egos the size of planets. So, of course, it was going to be a matter of time before one of their interests conflicted with the other and they had a falling out, or their egos just got in the way. So it's like the falling out finally happened. And hopefully, no, it could be like, Godzilla movie where you send a big monster after another monster, and the monsters are fighting. So it's just like, remember, Elon Musk is still a monster, but I am enjoying watching him go after Trump. And he's really fanning the MAGA base that Trump got to adopt Elon and got to like Elon. They didn't even like Elon at first. Like, Trump had to like convince them to like Elon, which is kind of the funny thing about this is Trump had to convince MAGA to like Elon, and now Trump's losing some of his base to Elon, it seems, which is great. And so Elon is hammering down on this Epstein thing really hard. And so are many of like the MAGA influencers, and like even like Fox News. If you go to the comment section, Fox News is usually so pro MAGA. because it's Fox News. It's like state media at this point. And so even on Fox News, if you go in the comment section of Fox News, like people like on stories about Epstein, uh, Trump supporters are feeling very let down because, like, to them, if you're not a Trumper, you might not know this. And if you haven't studied them, because I watch them like ants under a magnifying glass, that they're just like an interesting phenomenon. I've always been interested in cults um, because I was raised in a church and it found it really harmful and have a lot of religious trauma. And so I've kind of always been obsessed with organized religion and cults and how people get indoctrinated into organized religions. It's just kind of been a thing I've been interested in since I was probably like 11. Um, Random fact about me. And so MAGA as a cult is something really fascinating for me to study. Like, I'm like, this is interesting. And so I study them and I watch their beliefs. And like for them, like the Epstein files was almost like one of these like pillars of like, like how other cults have like, oh, there's going to be a rapture and we're going to be taken away and the aliens are going to come get us or something. Like I have like I think the Heaven's Gate or something like these cults have had these like this is going to be our thing that's going to happen and it's going to be a moment of redemption for us. The Epstein files was almost like one of MAGA's like pillars of redemption. Like they were like, it's going to be revealed and it's going to show that all these Democrats are on it and it's going to be a day of reckoning for MAGA when we release this Epstein list. And so MAGA like had this as like this pillar thing that they were like expecting to be like a little treat they were going to get, right? And so they were like hungry for this. And so then when somebody was like, psych, we're taking your treat away, instead of just saying it's coming later or kept teasing it, um, some of them, but not all, are starting to go, hey, what the hell? Uh, and so they're like starting to like be confronted with like this faith over facts problem, right? And so they're like being faced to force the cognitive dissonance. And so this is where like with cults, some of them might just dig in deeper. And so, we'll have the diehard cultists are gonna just like do some mental gymnastics in their head to make some excuse for why like they're not releasing this. Like Alex Jones was doing some backflips saying, oh, he's not releasing it so that he can strong arm Democrats or something because there are Democrats on the list or some kind of nonsense like that Alex Jones was saying. Like it's owning the libs or something because they do everything to own the libs. They're not really owning anybody. Yeah. And so there's like this outrage in MAGA over this right now. So, I'm trying to talk about other things too. But I'm definitely going to be talking about the Epstein thing. The more Trump is like, don't talk about Epstein, stop talking about it. It's like, you want me to stop talking about it? That means I'm going to push harder on that button and just press on it. And just press on that wound because apparently that's a sore spot. So just press it, press it, press it, press it, press it, press it. Because it is a sore spot with his base. And the more people we can get to wake up to the fact that this is a cult and they've been lied to, the better. So they can start deconstructing what the fuck happened to them. Because with cult members, you can't force them to deprogram. They have to like have a wake up moment and want to be deprogrammed, to deprogram themselves. They have to deprogram themselves. So this might be a wake up moment for some MAGA cult members. Just because it was just like held up above them as like this pillar, almost a foundation of their cult. And I don't think Trump understands enough about cults to understand how like knocking this down would make their whole cult foundation very, very shaky. And the other thing is like Elon talking about making this other political party, if he really does it, because he's probably all talk, because many things Elon does never actually come to fruition. That could potentially split the Republican Party and potentially neutralize it. Also, though, Elon Musk, still a piece of garbage, still a Yahtzee, still deplorable, but is doing really well as a wrecking ball to the MAGA party right now. And so I love to see it. It's just beautiful, isn't it? Uh, Cognitive dissonance is real. Yeah. And like, that's why in my page, my Facebook page or my spaces that I moderate and manage and maintain, and I am privileged to be a shepherd of or a custodian of these spaces. I now, if I see someone that they're just like completely unwilling to even potentially like recognize that they might have cognitive dissonance, I just block and remove them. I'm not spending my time with them anymore. Like, for example, I go and get screenshots from Truth Social or Twitter myself because the way Meta is and Facebook, like my page is kind of my whole community, and I've been curating it really carefully for almost 9 years. And if I lose my page, I lose so much. I lose my whole community pretty much. I'm building communities here and other places too, but like not everybody from that community has migrated to other communities that I'm hosting. And so I really don't want to lose my community because that community has been with me through my entire self discovery and healing journey since I found I was autistic 9 years ago. And like that would just hurt in a way that I don't know if many people can understand how much it would hurt to lose my community. And with Facebook, especially, when you share something, it violates community like rules. I think you get like a certain number of strikes before they either downrank your page and say this page is low quality and shares a lot of false information. We're not going to share it to anybody and we're going to prevent people from seeing it. Or they just take your page off and delete your page entirely. And, you know, as a creator, you don't really know exactly which like what the line is, like where you'll lose your page or where you'll get downranked. You just have to like be real careful. Although I do know that sharing false information, even though they took fact checkers off, is still a really big thing. Also, sharing anything that promotes violence. I'm not trying to give you a finger, sorry. Anything that promotes violence is another big thing. Because I got a strike for that the other day, and they wouldn't tell me what post I even violated it with. But like, so I got a strike for promoting violence on January 20th when I shared something, and I don't know what it was. I just know it was January 20th, and I got a strike. So I had one strike recently, and so I don't know what that was. I got a strike for showing my back once, for showing nudity, even though it was like a photo of my back, no boobs, just the back front, like nothing nude. And I got a strike for that one. And the strikes go away after like they give you like this strike is here for 90 days, this strike's here for a year, this strike's here. And so like they have this ridiculous arbitrary system. And so I don't want to ever reshare or share a tweet that or a truth post or anything I can't verify, because if I can't verify it, I will get in trouble and I could lose my entire Facebook page. So it's not worth it. So I go get the whole point of all that. Sorry, it's way too much information. I go myself and take screenshots of tweets and Truth Social posts and social media posts from people I am resharing to make so I can verify myself it's freaking real. And if it's something that's been deleted, I'll like go looking at Snoops to see if I can find out if it was real, if it's been deleted, because sometimes these people dirty delete things. So I verify every screenshot and I make sure it's real myself. And so like every now and then, like I had one I reshared from Trump, and they were like, "It's not real. It's fake news. This is fake." And I'm just like, "No, it's Truth Social. You can go look it up yourself." But it's like I don't even talk to them. I just like block, because it's like if you're not even going to go check to see if it's real and you're just going to automatically assume it's fake because it's inconvenient to your worldview, I'm not going to even waste my time being like, no, I promise you it's real. You can go here yourself. No, I'm not wasting my time. I'm not wasting my energy on those people because they can't be bothered to do their own research or fact checking. They're just wanting everything spoon fed to them. And then anything that crosses into their path that doesn't conveniently support their worldview is just like, that's false news. I'm done with people like that. Time to get off all platforms owned by Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, including Twitter. Um, well, I'm on Twitter. For most people, I would agree. The reason I haven't gotten off Twitter is because being that that's like where I started, I don't want somebody to, if I delete that account, to take that name and reuse it and pretend to be me, if that makes sense. And so I don't want to give up my username so that it becomes available again. So I hold on to it. I don't post over there anymore. I also use Twitter so that I can spy and get screenshots for the Nazi bullshit so that my readers don't have to. And so for me, being on Twitter allows all of my readers to not have to be on Twitter. And so less people have to engage with or go on Twitter because they can get the screenshots from me and don't have to go on Twitter. Um, and same with Truth Social. I used to go, I don't have an account on Truth Social, but I used to like go to Trump and take screenshots. And now they made it so you need an account unless you like have a direct link to a specific truth post, which I bet that'll be locked again eventually too. So I'm going to not be able to get Truth Social posts anymore probably pretty soon. They're locking it down because I refuse to give Donald Trump my phone number. Like you have to give a phone number and fuck that. I'm not giving Trump my phone number. So I won't be signing up for a Truth Social account. I just happen to have Twitter already. Apple, I mean, it's hard, like because it's like Apple, Google, Microsoft. Okay, do you have an Android phone or do you have an iPhone? You know, because I literally, I've got some Apple devices and I cannot afford to replace any of them right now. So I can't replace any of my devices, so that's tricky. Amazon, that's easy for me. But like for different people, and I don't think I have anything Microsoft. It just never was very accessible to me. I use a lot of the built-in accessibility features for my different disabilities, and I'm not going to list all of that because that's nobody's business. But Apple as a device was the best device for me as a person with multiple cognitive and neurological disabilities. And so like that's really hard because like I'd have to find a cell phone and a tablet and a computer that has the same disability capabilities that also like I guess it would have to be Linux and probably someone would need to build it for me because all the computers either have Mac or Windows unless you get a Linux computer like custom built for somebody or something. And like, that's like a little bit logistically tricky to say no Apple, Microsoft, or Google, just because almost everything is Apple, Microsoft, and Google. But I did like pull my book off Amazon, my Workplace Neurodiversity Rising book, and that really sucked financially, right? But I just ethically couldn't live with myself leaving my book on Amazon, the one I self-published. Like the book that I co-authored with a collaborator and got to contribute to. I don't even want to say co-authored because the other person that put it together, Autism Identity and Me, that one's put through a publisher, so it is available on Amazon, but I never recommend people buy it there. I always tell them buy it direct from the publisher. But we all do what we can. Battle not with monsters lest you become a monster. And if you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you. You know what? I don't know. I kind of think we do need to battle with monsters because if we don't fight back, the monsters are going to take over the world. And so I don't think just sitting passively and not fighting back is the answer. I got my shirt and I love the quality. Yay! That is like the best to hear. I don't know if anybody realizes that I've been trying to find like a good shirt vendor that I like and feel good about and has good quality and soft, nice materialed items and also inclusive sizing and inclusive like gender clothing, right? So not unnecessarily gendered clothing items. And Bonfire has been amazing to work with, and I picked them because I felt like the items were a nice and very good quality material. Let me take a sip. I got this dry tickle thing. Mm. And so, and I lost my day job, like pretty much. It was going away, but on January 20th, my work as a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility consultant in the field of queer and hero inclusion pretty much went away, especially because I started being much more political on my profile page, which means corporate clients don't want to hire someone who's being very politically outspoken because that makes them not politically neutral. And so I am not politically neutral. So that makes me a little bit of a liability when corporate clients do a background check on me now. Uh, so the Trump administration had pretty much put nails in the coffin on my day job as a workplace organizational consultant. But I have to admit that by making a choice to be open and outspoken with my anti Trump views, I have also contributed to the fact that I am now pretty much unemployable in the corporate world and I have destroyed my own company. And I would do it again. I blew the whole thing up and I would do it again, even like looking back at it, because I would not be able to live with myself if I don't speak up in the face of what's happening. So I blew up my best-selling business ethics book, Workplace Neurodiversity Rising, by pulling it out of Amazon. I that was one of my main revenue streams. It is now pretty much gone because I don't have people stumbling across my book on Amazon anymore. So that sucks, but I would absolutely do that again too. I've really destroyed my ability to work in a corporate client base, which were the clients that paid more because I can't in good conscience charge nonprofits and small organizations what I charge corporate. Um, I blew that up. And I would do that again because it's the right ethical thing to do. I wrote a business ethics book because the ethics really matter to me. And so I had to. And so, the shirts have been like a way I have been supporting myself thanks to my readers. No, you know what? No, that's a lie. I haven't been supporting myself. The shirts have been a way that my readers have been supporting me. That's a more accurate way to say it. My readers have been saving my butt because I made a dangerous choice when I blew everything up. Um, without much of a plan either, without really thinking about the consequences of turning my page into a very politically outspoken space. Um, and my readers have made everything possible. My viewers, my readers, all of you, thank you. Yeah, it's been amazing, but it's been scary too. And when all this is over, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't even know if their current clients are gonna come back when this is all said and done because of how outspoken I've been, or maybe it'll be okay because I was outspoken, but right now I'm kind of untouchable. That's my goal to move over to Linux. That'd be nice. Um, yeah, it's easier said than done with for some people. I used to be computer savvy, and the person I am today doesn't. Like, this is so weird, but like the person I used to be able to like build computers, but this was back when they had 39 and 40 pin ribbons, those big ones like that, which are now like right. Um, and I am not a person who understands how to build computers or do any of that now. Like, I'm not that person anymore, like at all. I'm not actually very tech savvy anymore, which is kind of weird. I'm good at like figuring out how to use different kinds of software programs sometimes, depends on the program. I'm not as good at it as I used to be. Um, so I do my part in other ways. I've stopped shopping at Walmart, which I know a lot of people can't do because Walmart's the only thing you have. I'm not trying to shame anyone who has to still shop at Walmart. I canceled Amazon, which had just freaking renewed for the year, which is really annoying. But I canceled that. I'm not shopping there anymore. When I used to shop there a lot when we didn't have a vehicle because I didn't have a way to go out and buy things. I couldn't go out and shop. And so that was like, a thing. Uh, so I'm doing that. And I have given up my main sources of revenue, my book sales, and uh, destroyed my corporate client base even more than it was already destroyed by this Trump regime in the last year. Um, so that's what I'm doing. That's me doing my part. I've done, and I'm going to keep speaking up because we all do what we can. Like, we've got different ways we can help and support. Like, we're all pulling on the same threads to unravel one big ugly orange sweater. So just find a thread and pull it, pull, just pull the little thread. Wherever your thread is, just pull it. Because we're all pulling on this big, ugly, tacky orange sweater together. And so as long as we're all pulling apart the little threads, eventually it's going to unravel, okay? We got this. And so it all matters. Like, what you're doing matters. Stay outspoken. It's good. Thanks. Yeah. I have a big mouth. And I speak up even when it gets me in trouble. And so we'll see how that goes. Um, it's just wild to watch this whole thing. Like, a cult has taken over our country. Um, and it's really dangerous, like something that's really dangerous about cults in general, but not just this cult, but all cults, is that they have this like faith-based loyalty instead of like a rational thought-based loyalty, right? So it's faith over fact. And that is really, really dangerous because that allows them to, when they are confronted with facts, dismiss those facts in favor of like faith, right? Um, and that's why I've railed against indoctrination for so long. And I've said loudly, and I got a little bit of pushback on this, that religious indoctrination of children, especially into like Christian types of faith, indoctrination, actually just religious indoctrination of children, because indoctrination is the teaching of questioning, believing something without questioning it. That's indoctrination. Teaching someone to believe something without question. Religious indoctrination of children is abuse. Period. That's abusive. If you are teaching them to believe something and they're not allowed to question it, that's abuse. And so people are like, I don't think that's abuse. And I'm just like, I don't think you know what indoctrination means if you don't think this is abuse. Because you're like basically then going to punish them for thinking critically or questioning the thing and having critical thinking. And so like people who are indoctrinated into these faiths from a young age become very, very vulnerable to coercion and manipulation because they are trained from childhood to ignore facts that contradict. I keep giving you the finger. I don't know why this keeps happening. I'm sorry. To ignore facts that contradict the faith. So they ignore any facts that contradict their faith. They're groomed. Literally, like they call us trans people groomers, right? No. They're groomed by their church, who, I mean, church people have a much higher instance of SA people than like any other group. Groomers. Grooming young people to believe in faith without question. And so then when they have facts that come up that contradict their faith, they just ignore them because they have to have faith. And that's what the MAGA cult does. And that's why some of these MAGA cult members, even though they're faced with lies like, oh, the Epstein list exists. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. They'll just like ignore anything that like, is a fact within convenience that contradicts with their faith because they're taught faith over facts. Where the rest of us are taught fact, is kind of more important than faith usually. And that's why so many of them want to put their kids in these religious schools or their homeschooled. They want to keep them away from the world. For some of you that don't know, I spent some time in a fundamentalist Christian academy on accident because my public school didn't know what to do with my little autistic ass when I was in school, and nobody knew I was autistic, and nobody was equipped to set up to support me, and they just thought all of my autistic mannerisms that arose due to me having unmet needs in the classroom were problem behaviors that needed to be crushed and destroyed. And the school didn't want me, and they were trying to get rid of me. And so I ended up in a public Christian, not a public Christian academy. It was like recommended by the public school, like for me to go to this Christian-based academy. And it doesn't exist anymore, so there's no point naming it. Otherwise, I would totally name it, name and shame, but they're gone. The building is a flower shop now, kind of random. And so I see it, and I just like see the flowers all over the stairway that used to be where the older kids were upstairs, and the younger kids were downstairs, and the girls weren't allowed to play with boys. And it was They had books that told me that brown kids were lazy. Yeah, I'm not joking. Like, I brought this homework book home and it said the brown boy was lazy. And my mom's like, we're pulling you out of this school right now. And it's like, thanks. There were definitely other red flags, but I'm glad that one was enough to get mom's attention and get me out of there. But it was really not a good place. And they had really problematic values and they didn't really teach anything. Uh, in this Christian fundamentalist nationalist school, basically we got these little workbooks, these little paper workbooks, and you just like had these cubicles, and it was like nobody could see your neighbors, or these big white cubicles you sit in, and you do your work, and like you can't see or talk to anybody all day, and you just sit alone and do your self-paced workbooks. And I think there was maybe some that did like basic math, and it was like reading, but there wasn't science, and the history was only Bible studies, and even the math books were full of like Bible math. I joke you not, like every freaking book was some kind of Bible book. And the only history we were taught was like biblical history. So if it was history that wasn't in the Bible, we were not taught about it. And like since we weren't taught about science in this indoctrination school, we were not taught about critical thinking. We weren't taught about cause and effect. We weren't taught about how to like examine if something is factual or not, because that is all inconvenient to the church, to the indoctrination. So these kids are not being taught science. They're not being taught sex ed. They're not being taught history other than Bible history, and they're being taught Bible history as if it is fact, the only fact. If it's in the Bible, it's true. If it's in the and so like the way you ask one of these fundies who grew up in one of these fundie schools, or were just indoctrinated into fundie's cult or homeschooled, like you ask them like, how do you know this is true? They can't like use a scientific process to like determine fact or fiction. They say, I know it's true because it was in the Bible. And you can't say, oh, well, there's no evidence the Bible is true. That doesn't work for them. Like, no, if it's in the Bible, it's true. The Bible is the book of absolute truth. Everything in the Bible is true. That is what they believe. Until you like bring up a Bible verse that's like inconvenient to their beliefs, and they're like, oh, it's not in there, or that's misinterpreted, and then they like conveniently dismiss it. And so that's what makes the MAGA cult and all cults so dangerous, is because they have this faith over facts mindset that is often a result from indoctrination that, at least in Texas, many of them started when they were young children. Like I was raised around fundamentalist, nationalist Christian children. And so like, even as a kid, I was like, these kids are really like different, and not in a good way, like they weren't allowed to watch like one of my favorite shows, Captain Planet. And I was talking to someone else recently that was raised in a fundamentalist church, and they were saying, because I was like, why not Captain Planet? Captain Planet's amazing. Like, it's a good positive message. And they were like, oh, it's because Captain Planet says the power is yours. No, the power is only supposed to be God's. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, wow, just even you having your own power outside of God is something they didn't want their children to be indoctrinated into. And it's just like, wow, how freaking sad is that? Other things the fundies weren't allowed to do. They really weren't allowed to like watch TV at all. They only had like VHS tapes they were allowed to watch. It was the 90s. Aging myself a bit there. They had like their special little books, which I didn't see until I ended up in the fundie school, but they were doing these fundie books at home, which like were like my books that I had when I went to the school in 4th grade. Yeah, and so they weren't allowed to read pop fiction. Like they couldn't read Goosebumps, of course. They couldn't read Harry Potter. Like back then, Harry Potter was the devil. Now they love J.K. Rowling, now that she's a violent transphobe, of course. Anything witchy, anything with like, oh, Pokemon. Because Pokemon, they said, were demons. Like, and so Pokemon was demonic. Like, they weren't allowed to have Pokemon. Like, these poor kids missed out on so many things that were just fun about life and childhood. It really, and I decided that the fundamentalist Christians were my enemy, my mortal enemy in elementary school. And let me tell you, like, I have been like anti-fundamentalist Christian since elementary school. And let me tell you why. Because the first couple of years of elementary school, we were allowed to wear Halloween costumes to school on Halloween. And Halloween is my favoriteest holiday. And then one year, because some fundamentalist Christian parents felt their kids' religious liberties were violated because they had to see us in Halloween costumes, they started changing the rules. And so it was like, oh, you can only dress up as like animals, or like they limited what you were allowed to dress up as, like if you were allowed to dress up at all. And then some schools in like different areas was like no Halloween costumes at all, because they were just like anti-Halloween, because they thought that other people celebrating Halloween was a violation of their kids' religious rights. And here we fucking go, having the same bullshit happen now, where we've got kids that parents saying that just having queer kids represented in books and stories and talked about in schools violates their kids' religious liberties. Just seeing gay people and gay families represented is a violation of your religious rights. And so that's a slippery slope, because does that mean seeing gay people in public is going to eventually be considered a violation of people's religious rights? Where does it stop? Right? If you having to see or hear about gay and queer people violates people's religious freedoms, how long is it before queer and gay people are forced out of the public light and talks about queer identity become so taboo that they're considered pornographic? Because that is their goal in Project 2025. The goal is literally to make queer identities obscene so that we're not allowed to be in public. Like, if they succeed, my pages are all going to go away. It doesn't matter what platform it's on, because it's going to have to be behind some kind of paywall where you have to like prove everyone is legally 18 to access content that will be considered porn by our government. And it'll probably just mean Facebook is gone, Substack is gone. Anything that's just on a paywall will be gone if you don't give me your ID so I can prove that you're a minor, because it'll be a liability to have you access me otherwise. Like in Texas, we don't have Pornhub anymore unless you like sign up for an account, you give them your ID and all the shit. Like, I don't know about you, but the average porn watcher does not want a record being kept of their porn, especially the Texans, because like they act like they're so transphobic, and then you always look at transphobic pornographic history, and they always seem to watch the most trans porn. Methinks thou dost protest too much. It's been an hour, and my tablet screen just keeps getting darker and darker and darker. I don't know what's going on, but the battery's charging. I think it's because it's really hot, because if I touch it, it's like burning hot. So maybe it's overheating, and that might mean I need to log off. We're in Texas, and it's fucking hot. So hot already. Like, I know you can probably hear the air conditioner in the background. I try to go live before it's warm enough that I need to turn the air conditioner on. But at 9 a.m., I had to turn the air conditioner on because it was already 80 degrees and humid. We just barely got above the dew point, and all the humidity just came off my windows. But it was like soggy. I won't say the M word, but it was very soggy all morning. And now it's just hot. It's probably soggy and hot. I just can't see the dew out there anymore. So the iPad might freak out and shut down because something funny is happening. And see, I have an iPad because I got it for a discount for like $150 years ago. And that was cheaper than any other tablet. So that's why I have this old iPad, and I'm not looking to replace it because I don't have any money. I don't have any money. I'm broke. I'm a broke bitch. I'm a broke witch. That's even more accurate. Anyway, it is getting hot in here. Like, I'm getting hot. I need to turn on my fan, and I had to turn it off because AC and the fan would have just been way too much. So I'm gonna log off. I'm gonna let this video start processing, and then I will post the replay for anyone to watch, whether you're a free or a paid subscriber. You'll have access to it. It'll probably take about an hour before Substack processes the video so I can post it. It'll also words. It'll also be up on YouTube. What else? The shirt. Okay, the shirt. I need to remind everyone that I do have this shirt available. I've decided with the shirts now to give people time because I don't want it to be like a scarcity thing. Uh, and I also don't want to have a bunch of different links I have to remember for a bunch of different shirts because it doesn't like give me a store, I don't think. It's just like, here's a link to this shirt, here's a link to this shirt, here's a link to this sticker. So that's like confusing for me. It's a lot to keep track of. And so I'm doing like a shirt at a time with Bonfire. Uh, and so what I'm doing is they ship in like 2 weeks at a time, like every 2 weeks the shipment goes out. And so I'm just gonna leave it on all summer. So this is like the summer shirt. And then the other shirt I had was the spring shirt. And then I'm really excited about the fall shirt. I've already like seen a preview of the design for the fall shirt. I don't have my sample yet because I'm not in a hurry. That won't come out until probably September. So this will probably run through August. But I think the fall shirt's really cool. It's kind of got this like apocalyptic look to it. I don't know. I like it. So the fall shirt is coming, and so like each quarter, I'm gonna release a new shirt, and there'll be a new shirt, 4 new shirts a year. Um, and then what I might do at the end of the year, just in case anybody missed a shirt earlier in the year that they want to grab, because there's like new people joining every day, every week. There's like thousands of new people. I might do like something at the end of the year where like all the shirts are available for a period of time where they all come back in case you missed one and there's one you want. I don't like want it to be like this thing where like, oh, I missed my chance. I didn't get it and I have to feel left out. I don't like that. That just feels icky to me. It's icky. So I'm gonna find a way to not have that be the case. 'Cause I want to do better, than other people do, as far as like fairness and equity and things like that. And so I think there's a better way. And so that's what I think I'm gonna do is like all the shirts, like this shirt and the shirt that was for spring and the shirt that is for fall. And then I'll have a winter shirt, like at the end of the year, maybe for like December or the last month of the year or something. I will like do a comeback. That sounds weird. Like like bring back the 3 shirts for the first quarter, like the summer and the fall, or summer, the spring and shirt and fall shirt. And like, anyway, I'm talking too much about the same thing. I'm going in circles. Yeah, it's been a long few months. Anyway, let me look in the comments real quick before I log off, and that'll be it. Well, Walter Rhine here on Substack talks about his child a lot. He lived in a small city in a Republican state. Yeah, I grew up in a very small city in a Republican state. It's like really traumatic to be a queer neurodivergent person. Critical thinking skills have been lost. Yeah, I think that's the first thing. Like cults target people who are vulnerable. Uh, and also they target people who like maybe don't have the best critical thinking skills, and also people who are lonely and people who are just really desperate for a community and people who are desperate to belong and people who honestly often are people who are traumatized and have developmental trauma and did not develop a strong sense of self or self-worth, and people who look for external validation from others because they aren't able to find internal validation. And so that can make people more vulnerable to all kinds of grooming, coercion, and coercive control. So there's definitely like a generational trauma component, I think, that plays into this. And also like some of these people, like they're raising their children into this in a way that makes them very vulnerable to this kind of programming and manipulation. I don't even know that's what they're doing, which is really sad. Is there a link to your shirt? I will be sure to post a link to the shirt in the replay. If you go to my Substack, because like I can't do it right now when I'm live, and then when I end this live, it'll disappear, and then it won't be there on the new post. But I'll put it on the new post in about an hour when this video is done processing, and I can put it up. If you go to my Substack now and you go to the post, there's one that like where I did my last live video last week. I think it was on Friday actually. So if you go to the post from Friday, It's a free post for anyone. There's a link to the shirt on that post because I put this shirt on before I go live, so I remember to talk about it because otherwise I won't remember if I'm not wearing it. If I don't see it, out of sight, out of mind, don't remember. Wearing it, it's like, oh, here's a big reminder. Don't forget to talk about the damn shirt because my brain is like Swiss cheese. So there's a link on Friday's live video replay if you want to grab it before I post the replay of this one. If you are subscribed as a free or paid subscriber, the replay of this video, when it's ready, will be sent to your inbox and it will have a link to grab a shirt if you want to help grab a shirt. It's really awesome. I really appreciate your support. It helps more than I can even put into words. Yeah, it just makes this all possible. All of you make this possible, whether you're monetary support or whether you are emotional support or community support or you're liking and engaging and asking questions, and especially giving feedback. Goodness knows I am not a perfect person. I am a flawed person trying to learn how to do better. And my community is a big part of why I have become a better person over the years because you all give me feedback. You tell me, hey, this misses the mark. Hey, this isn't quite it. Hey, like, did you know this? And you teach me things and you help me learn and grow. And so that is something that is just a value beyond anything monetary. And it's something I'm grateful for. And it's something I don't even think I can express the level of gratitude in words. And I don't think it's something I'll ever even be able to repay. Like the debt I feel from that gift you've given me, um, has just allowed me to just be a better person than I was 9 years ago and just hopefully keep becoming a better person in the future. So thank you all for everything. The gifts, like I said, the gifts you give me, I don't even realize you realize that you're giving me. And so I'm really grateful for every one of you. I will see you all next week. I don't know what day, but I will be back for a live video again. And then the week after that, I'll be live. But I'll have an exciting team with me, and they'll be doing a film. Yeah. And so I can't say more yet. I got to say less, but that'll be exciting. And I'll like get to be like, hey, look at these people. They're shooting a documentary for 9 minutes. Oh, that's cool. So that'll be coming out. So stay tuned. All right, now. See you next time. Stay safe. Bye. All.